Okay, so this week we're going to talk about something in this week's parsha, a particular Rashi which is very relevant to our Avodas Hashem, but is also the simple meaning of the Rashi, and from there we'll learn some inspiration. And again, as mentioned earlier, this is L'schus Rachel Miriam Vashendel B'Seich Shachel Yisrael. In the parsha we talk about a story that happened with Yosef, which had a bit of a miserable life, as we know, sold by his own brothers, became later an Eved, Beveis Petifar, in the house of Petifar, and then there was a Lashon Hara said about him, about an immoral act that he did, supposedly with Petifar's wife, and because of that, Petifar arranged that he should be thrown into the dungeon, into jail. And Baruch Hashem, we learned next week's parsha he gets out of it, but that's for next week. And the Medrash tells us that Potiphar found out that what his wife said about Yosef was not true. It was a sheker. It wasn't true. But he was stuck. He really wanted to punish her with the death penalty, but now that he found that it wasn't true, he decided, because of respect to his wife, not to undermine his wife, so at least he'll put Yosef into jail. And that's why he suffered in jail. But there's a Rashi in this week's parsha. The pasuk says that Yosef, when he was in Potiphar's house, Vayara Doinov ki Hashem itoi, that his master Potiphar saw that Hashem is always with him. V'chol asher hu oiseh Hashem matzliach biyadoi, and anything that Yosef does, Hashem brings success, matzliach biyadoi, in his hands. Rashi makes a comment on those words and says that Potiphar saw that everything that Yosef does and that Hashem is with him. Says Rashi, Shem Shamayim Shagah B'Fiv, that Yosef is the type of person that always mentions Hashem's name. Anything that happens, Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Bezos Hashem, Mirza Hashem, everything he sees in the hands of Hashem. Now, why does Rashi have to comment? The pasuk seems to be pretty clear. His master saw Hashem is always with him. And Rashi not only comments on it, which we don't understand why he has to comment, the pasuk is perfectly fine, and he takes the pasuk out of the simple explanation, and he says that it doesn't mean that Hashem was with him. No, it means something totally different. It means Shem Shamayim Shagah B'Fiv, that Yosef always talks about Hashem, which is actually not the simple meaning of the pasuk. But not only is not a simple meaning, it's actually the opposite. When you say that Hashem is itoi, you're saying that Hashem is with him. When you're saying that Yosef is talking about Hashem, it's the other way around. It's Yosef is with Hashem. It's a totally different meaning in the pasuk. It's very hard to understand this, and not only it's hard to understand why Rashi makes his comments over here, part of the question is that we have many times in the Torah, even earlier and later in this week's parsha, similar expressions, and Rashi doesn't make such comments. We have a pasuk earlier, right before this pasuk. Hashem was with Yosef, Vayish Matzliach. Hashem was with Yosef. It's the same as in this pasuk. Hashem was with him. Hashem itay. Rashi doesn't say Hashem was with Yosef, means that he always says Hashem's name. Why? Because it's very simple. Hashem is with Yosef means that Hashem is always with Yosef. So why over here does Rashi say means he's... Later we have when he's in jail. This is Yosef when he's in Potiphar's house. When he's in jail, that the Sar Beis HaSohar, the officer that's in charge of the prison, allowed Yosef to do whatever he wants. He didn't see any fault in Yosef. Everything is perfect. Asher Hashem mitu, because Hashem is with him. Again, Rashi doesn't say anything. Also, because Pshat is simple, Hashem is with him. So, yeah, you could argue that in this week's parsha, Rashi doesn't have to comment again and again and again, say the same thing. He could, but we have much earlier in Parshas told us the first time we have such an expression. It says Avimelech and his minister Fichel told Yitzchak that we saw with you and with your father, Ki Hashoya Hashem imach. Hashem is with you. Rashi doesn't say because you always mention Hashem's name. Hashem is with you. Simple meaning Hashem is with you. So in our parsha, all of a sudden, one of the times it means you mention Hashem's name. I mean, it also comes out that means Yosef always said Hashem's name. Avram and Yitzchak didn't talk like that, right? Because if Avram and Yitzchak would mention Hashem's name, we should find out about that. This is a thing that they did. They always mention Hashem's name. They didn't mention it. We don't know about it. We don't interpret the psukim like that. We have an exception. We have with Yaakov that when Yaakov told Yitzchak, came to Yitzchak to get the brachas, he said, "How did you come so fast to bring me my food, my meet. So he said, okay, Hikra Hashem al kach lefana, Hashem arranged this for me. It was a hashgacha pratis. Yitzchak heard that he said, Kshona van Mishcha, I need to touch you. I need to touch me filler. You Esav or Yaakov? Rashi says, why? Because he knows that Esav doesn't say Hashem's name all the time. Yitzchak said, Yaakov is saying Hashem's name, must be Yaakov. That means not everybody says Hashem's name all the time. You could be a tzaddik, because Yitzchak thought that Esav is a tzaddik. He tzayed b'shiv, he fooled him, he kept on asking questions about Meiser, about different mitzvahs, how you do them. But still he understands that Esav doesn't say Hashem's name, Yaakov does. You could say Hashem's name all the time and not be the greatest. And you could not say Hashem's name and be. So there's a special hanaga that Yaakov had. Now we find this again thing with Yosef over here. So the Mefarshim talk about this, and they have a lot of explanations which don't fit very well into the Psukim. In fact, there's actually a medrash that says, but Rashi doesn't bring this medrash, that Potiphar saw Yosef saying secretly words, saying alachash. So he asked him, what are you making kisha for me? He says, no, I'm davening to Hashem. Oh, Hashem Shamayim Shag V'Fiv. So there's all these different medrashim that can tell us exactly what happened. But again, we need to understand why Rashi has to say this simple pshat explanation. And the Rashi is so hard to understand that the Ramban comments on this Rashi and says, Loinir, it doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem to be the pshat in the pasuk. Hashem is with him. Oh, Hashem says Hashem's name. I think the pshat for us is a very simple pshat. A pshat which fits into the words of the pasuk. And it's a message, very important message too. The reason why Rashi says over here that Hashem is with him means Hashem Shamayim Shog B'Fiv, he says Hashem all the time. Not that Hashem is with him, because the pasuk says Vayar Adonov, Potiphar saw. Potiphar is a Mitzri. Potiphar is a Oived Avodah Zarah. When he sees Yosef being successful, obviously what does he think? Success of the Avodah Zarah, not Eibishter. Every Oived Avodah Zarah thinks that everything in this world comes from his Avodah Zarah. Lavan told Yaakov, Elokei Avram, Elokei Nachar, Yishpik Beinenu, I have my God of Nachar. He's going to... Paroi, which the whole Mitzrayim runs based on Paroi. It's a different Paroi, but the idea is the same. Paroi said, Lo Yadaiti Savaya. I don't know who Hashem is. The Oived Avodah Zarah doesn't know anything about Hashem. Yosef later told Paroi, Elokim Yanesh Lein Paroi, that, you want to know how to interpret my dreams, your dreams, it's going to come from the Eibishter. Yosef talks about Hashem all the time. Now, Paroi himself never heard of that before. And Potiphar doesn't know of such a thing also. So when the pasuk says, Vayara Doinov, Potiphar saw that Yosef is being successful, because Hashem is with him, how does Potiphar think it's because of Hashem? Potiphar thinks everything's from Avodah Zarah. Zokt Rashi, Vayara Doinov, the vase, you know why Potiphar saw so? Because he always says Hashem. So Potiphar understands, this Hashem guy, that every other word, Ez Hashem, Mis Hashem, this is Hashem guy. It must be, it's all coming from Hashem. When we had the pasuk earlier in the parasha, the pasuk right before this, Vahi Hashem es Yosef, Vahi Ish Matzlech, Hashem is with Yosef, Yosef was successful. It doesn't say the Potiphar saw. It says Hashem is with him. Hashem is with him. It means what the pasuk says. The facts are Hashem is with him. But in this pasuk it says, Vayara Doina, Potiphar saw. How does Potiphar know about this? That's coming from Hashem, because he hears it from him all the time. If your employee, your employer, your colleague hears you saying Bez Hashem, Mitz Hashem, and he sees your success, he knows it's coming from your Hashem that you mention all the time. Avimelech also said the words Roi Re'inuka, we saw that Hashem was with you, even though they were over the Avodah Zarah. So how come they don't think that Avram Yitzchak's godless came from Avodah Zarah? Over there the answer is very simple, because Yitzchak, Avimelech saw that it, as the pasuk says, Yitzchak planted, and he was successful more than anybody else. Meir shot him 100 times as much, and it was a difficult year in a difficult land. So obviously it's not Avodah Zarah, because if Avodah Zarah, then everybody planted, and this guy had a crazy success. Obviously, Vayivarcheu Hashem, because Hashem blessed him. So Rashi doesn't have to reinterpret the words in the pasuk Hoya Hashem Mimach and say it means because he mentions Hashem's name, because they understood. Avimelech understood. Look at this guy, this Oved Hashem, and he's being successful. Nobody else is successful. Avram Avinu, right before that, the Eibusha came to Avimelech in the dream and told him, don't bother Sarah. So he obviously knew the godless was not coming from the Zarah. Hashem came to him in a dream. The later when we talk about in this week's parsha, I still have one more thing to explain over here. It says that the minister, the officer in the prison, didn't Aim base asar base asoyer royes kol biyad. He doesn't see anything wrong with Yosef. Everything is perfectly fine with Yosef. Basher who is Basher Hashem Yitoy. Rashi, this guy was also a Avodah, the minister, the officer in prison. And Rashi doesn't say that it means because he mentioned Hashem's name. Why wouldn't he think it's coming from his Avodah Zarah? The answer is, Rashi actually comments and says, Basher Hashem Yitoy, Bishvil Hashem Yitoy. What is Rashi trying to say? Not the pshat that the Sarbis HaSoyer knew that Hashem Yitoy. The pasuk is saying, Bishvil Hashem Yitoy. The Sarbis HaSoyer has no idea why. But the reason why the Sarbis HaSoyer allowed Yosef to be successful and gave him a free pass in prison, because Yosef was successful with Shil Hashem Yitoy. It doesn't say that the Sarbis HaSoyer understood it from Hashem. Therefore, Rashi doesn't say because he mentioned Hashem's name. So there's a very important message over here, and a message of the importance of relating everything that we do to Hashem, and when we do it that way, then the people around us understand it also. But one more very, very important point over here. The pasuk talks about the success of Yosef. He uses a term that I don't think we find earlier in Chumash. The term he was matzliach. Matzliach means successful. Lashon hatzlacha. Hatzlacha means someone who has mazel. In Yiddish, gliklach. Hatzlacha means something which comes not from what you're doing, it's something milamayla, a special mazel that a person, the Eibusha gives you such brachas. You have the story of Purim, everything seems b'derech hateva, and there is b'derech hateva, but it's something lamayla mateva that's orchestrating the entire teva. Yosef had, the pasuk says, Vahi ish matzlech. First it says he was a man of success. Then it says, the next pasuk, you look carefully at the psukim, V'chol asher roisa Hashem matzliach. Not he's a ish matzliach. That's one thing. You're a successful business person. But Hashem, whatever you do, Hashem matzliach. But here it says Hashem matzliach biyadoi. That he was so successful that Potiphar made him in charge. Al kol beisav al kol sheyeshle. Everything that he owns, he left in the hands of Yosef Babayis Vasada. That's why there was this situation that was orchestrated later with Potiphar's wife. Later he came to jail. Now the Sar Beis HaSoyer made him in charge of everything in the jail. He was in charge. Al kol ha'asidim Hashem Beis and all the prisoners. And then it says again the pasuk that he was successful. Vasher u'es Hashem atzlich. But this doesn't say Hashem atzlich biyadoi. This is a much higher level of success. Success means it's not about you. Success means it comes. Everything you see is from the Eibusher. Hatzlacha lekis. But it's such a higher level of hatzlacha that is so supernatural that you don't even think it's about you. It's not you doing. Hashem made you successful. Chol ashu oisa Hashem atzlich biyadoi. Through his hands. No, the whole thing. Yad Hashem asas. It's all Hashem. The first time when he was in Potiphar's house, he's called it Ish Matzliach, a man of success. Asher hu oisa, whatever he does, Hashem Matzliach biyadoi. It's successful in his hands. Later, when we talk about when he's already in jail, the Sar Beis HaSoyer, we talk about how it made him in charge of everything. We don't even say biyadoi. We say that it's Asher hu oisa Hashem Matzliach. Hashem Matzliach. Hashem success. Yosef was in two different situations. The first time he's an Eved, the second time he's a prisoner. In order to be Hashem, to give us success, we need to put ourselves to the side and be mevatel ourselves to Hashem. The less you feel yourself, that's all about what you do, the more you feel Hashem Yitoy. It's all the hands work of Hashem. There's a difference between a servant and a prisoner. A servant, a slave, he works very, very hard. He doesn't have much of a personality. It's all given over to the master. Whatever the slave owns, the master owns. But there's someone that's doing things. The reason why I have a slave, because I need someone to accomplish things in my life. I need to have a clean house. And I might even make him in charge of my business, because I need to have a good, successful business. He's doing things for me. Someone is doing things for me, but his someoneism is almost not there, because he's totally subservient to the master. A prisoner is not about doing things for me. A prisoner is someone that's tied, locked, can't do anything. We don't let him go out of his box. That's why in the Torah we don't have a punishment called prison, because a man is made to do work, to do stuff. Adam lam lilad. Why should Torah punish a person that he shouldn't be able to do his mission? If he has to be killed, he has to be killed. We don't put people in jail. It doesn't exist in the Torah, such a punishment. To make a person not to be able to move, not to go anywhere physically, and to go up in level 2. That's a prisoner. We don't say when the prisoner does something, the job of the prisoner. The Eved, you see, biyadoi, he did something. In Svarim it says in Paskim that when a person does something ba'oines he was forced to do, he's pater. Why? Because when you're forced, that means you didn't do it. It's not your action. It's as if it happened by itself. When a prisoner does things, he didn't do it. He's not there. He's non-existent. He's locked up, tied up. When Yosef was still an Eved, so his Avodas Hashem was in a way of an Eved. He took from this the message to become an Eved Hashem. An Eved Hashem. So before that, Yosef wasn't successful. He had issues with his brothers. He became successful only when he became an Eved. Now his Avodas Hashem became in the way of an Eved. And now whatever he does, Hashem is Matzliach biyadei. I'm still here. I'm an Eved to Hashem. Later when Yosef was in jail, he became so bottled to Hashem that he's nothing completely. He's not an Ish Matzliach. Asher Roisa Hashem Matzliach, not biyadei. He's totally a prisoner, he's totally given up. Of course, Yosef did, Asher Roisa. But he's like a prisoner, there's no place to feel his own Matthias. And that's part of also the idea of the Shem Shemayim Shaga Befiv, that he mentioned Hashem's name. We talk about it when he was still in Potiphar Zas, not in jail. So I spoke before at length about this, but the idea is, in Potiphar's house, there's a Yosef, he talks and he says Hashem's name. There's him, he's given over to Hashem as an Eved. When he comes to jail, it knocked him down 10 levels lower, and Beruchnis, he put himself in a much higher madrega, not to totally give himself over to Hashem. Now we don't talk about him saying Hashem's name. I'm not even here. Chol Hashem Matzliach. And in terms of our Avodas Hashem, the more we feel it's less ourselves and more Hashem, the more, and we recognize the Be'ezras Hashem and Mirza Hashem with the Koyach of the Eibishter, the Hashgacha Pratis of everything, and it's less me, then the more Hashem gives us Hatzlacha. Hatzlacha means Hatzlacha L'mayla, Gliklach. Gliklach means you don't even understand why this is happening. Sometimes he's a good businessman, but he's a successful businessman, but it relates to him. Sometimes it's such a success, it's beyond anything. Potiphar could see it. The officer in jail could see it. Everybody could see it. The Leibishter Mishav Hatzlacha and all our Inyanim, and they could have Hatzlacha Mashiach. Now.